admired all throughout the world again. Young people will move from the coasts to big cities and to the heartlands to build their fortunes on the new frontier of the American Midwest. They're going to move back. Instead of leaving, they're going to be moving back. And I'm telling you right now, standing here in the center of this once great city, that by the end of my term, the entire world will be talking about the Michigan miracle and the stunning rebirth of Detroit. That's going to happen very quickly. With your vote, we will bring back our country, we will rebuild our country, and we will reunite our country with American heart, American grit, and American hands. I want to thank you all for being here. This is a great honor. It's such an important day to me because I've been talking about this subject for so long, and I've watched politicians destroy this area, this state, this city. And it's so easy to fix, so we're going to fix it better than anybody ever thought even possible. So God bless you all. And now I think, on top of all that, I think I have to answer some questions. Can you believe it? So I'll stay here and I'll answer some questions. But thank you all very much, and we appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that was a tremendous amount of information that you've given to us, and we'll see that the questions, you've really answered most of them already.
I think so.
I mean, you've really done a great job. And so what I thought I would do is to jump to a couple personal questions. The first one that I've always been intrigued with, you have an enormous amount of energy. I haven't seen anybody like you in my lifetime that keep on going and going and going, in spite of sometimes some rather negative responses and forces here in our country. How do you do it?
Like a bullet to the ear. So I had parents that were great. It's you have good parents. You sort of, I believe in that theory. It helps. But I have two parents that were energetic. They lived for a long time. They were around for a long time. They were great people. But my father had tremendous energy, and my mother did too. And it's a little bit that, I think, more than anything else. And I enjoy what I do, and I love this, despite I could be right now in the most beautiful ocean on the sand, exposing my really beautiful body, so beautiful, to the sun and the surf, skin cancer, right? To the sun and the surf all over the world. And or I could be in Detroit with you, and I'd rather be in Detroit with you, okay?
That's great. Thanks. We've known each other for a while, and I know your children and I have been just enormously impressed with their values, their lifestyles, and you did a great job raising them. How did you do that? Everybody here loves their kids, and you mentioned about creating an environment where we can pass our businesses down to our children, basically tax-free or something close to that. What did you do with your children to make them so responsible and so involved in everything that you do?
Well, I'm fortunate in that, they're smart children. Many of you have smart, and some will have some that aren't so smart, and you have to understand that happens too, and that's all, and you're going to love them just as much. But, I have smart children, and they've been good academically, et cetera, et cetera. But very importantly, I would always tell them, no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. No drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. And they'd go out, and Ivanka would say, Dad, stop telling me that. And I said, I'm going to tell it to you every time I see you. I'm going to drive you wild with this. You're going to, no drugs, no alcohol. And I would say that. And I hope that, because who knows, right? But they don't have any of those problems. I mean, I've seen friends, very smart people, they have smart kids, but their kids get hooked on drugs or they get hooked on alcohol. Alcohol is, in many ways, like they tell me, I don't know. I never had a glass of alcohol. I had a brother who was a wonderful guy, but he had an alcohol problem. And he sort of do the same. He said, don't ever drink alcohol. He was He was, and he smoked, and I put cigarettes in that same category, almost that same category, but they're certainly not good for you. But I would always tell my kids, because I've seen parents that had brilliant children, went to the best schools, they were great, but they got hooked on drugs or alcohol, and they never made it. They couldn't compete, basically. They never made it. And many of them are dead. Many of them die. They die with this fentanyl that's coming in. I'm going to get that problem. I had that problem almost solved with President Xi, by the way. And I said, you have to impose the maximum penalty, or we're not going to, I would always talk about trade. We have the power of trade. And I said, well, we're just not going to get along on trade. Hence, I could do things like we talked about. I don't want to go into it, but we can do things. And he and I had a handshake on he was going to impose the maximum penalty on people that run companies that sell us through Mexico. Almost all of it comes through Mexico. And the maximum penalty is the death penalty. And he was going to impose that. And then we had the transfer power. And this guy came in and he didn't know what to do with anything. And so that went down the tubes. But one of the first things I'm going to do is talk to him about that, because they were going to give the death penalty to anybody sending fentanyl into this country. And that would have really solved a lot of the problem. And the other thing I say, and it's not nice to say, I don't like saying it, but, I've seen a lot of countries. I deal with all of them, and I know that all of them. And the only ones that don't have a drug problem are the ones that have the death penalty. We can set up all of our blue ribbon committees. Everybody calls me. You would call me. My friends call me. Could I be on that blue ribbon committee? And they'd have a blue ribbon committee on drugs and how to stop, these drug lords who are very smart people, very, very vicious, very smart. And we'll have these people from New York, some dilettantes, and they didn't want to talk about it. They just want to be a part of, whatever it is. The only ones that stop drugs, the only ones, are the ones that have the death penalty. And you have to remember, it sounds horrible, but what's more horrible is what they do to our country, because on average, he or she, male or female, drug dealer, will kill 500 people. And that doesn't include the families that are devastated. I know families that lost a son or lost a daughter. They've never been the same. I mean, they're like different people. You talk to them and they're just, years later, I say, has it gotten better? No, it's gotten worse, they tell me. And there's nothing worse than that, and nothing worse than that. And it's because of drugs. It's because if I maybe it's too much for the American people to go with, but I will say this: the only countries that solve their drug problem, China. I went to President Xi. I said, so. First time I met him, I said, do you have a drug problem? No. 1.4 billion people. And why don't you have a drug problem? He says, death penalty, quick trial. What's a quick trial? The dealer is immediately put on trial. They don't have 9 years of legal and then another 9 years of appeals, 22 years later, and then they're released. No, this is, they don't play games, and, it's a tough deal. But he said, quick trial. I said, what is quick trial? Immediate trial. And you know what the drug dealers do? They say, hey, let's get the hell out of here fast. They don't play games. They don't play games. They even send the bullet to the family, and they make them pay for the bullet. They make them pay for the bullet. It's vicious, but they have no drug problem. With 1.4, they had a drug problem for centuries, with the poppy fields, with all the things. And they realized countries were taking them over that were much smaller, they were being decimated because everybody they had a tremendous drug problem. But it stopped years ago, and it was the death penalty. And I can tell you, we could set up all the committees, blue ribbon, and headed by so-and-so, a society person from Madison Avenue. But I will tell you that it's a waste of time. The only thing that's going to stop, and we got it down. I got it down 19%. That's great, but but it's not like I got it down, and we worked like hell. We had so much security in the border. We had the German Shepherds. There's a certain dog, a certain type of German Shepherd. So they have millions of dollars worth of machinery, and they have a dog, and it's a certain German Shepherd. Some of you know what it is. it has a sense of smell that's so incredible that the machine is nothing by comparison, nothing. And it's incredible to see. I mean, incredible. But we watched it very closely on the border. We had a lot of dogs that did this incredibly well. And we had a lot of very expensive machinery that did it good, not great, but they did it good, not nearly as good, believe it or not. And we had it down about 19%, and that was it. It was very tough. With the death penalty, you would eradicate drugs in this country. But and I talk about it a lot. I say that because maybe people have to get used to it because it sounds harsh. But when you think of it, if they do kill on average 500 people, everybody in this room knows a lot of people that they lost a child or sometimes a father or mother, but they've lost a child to fentanyl, and that wouldn't have happened if we had the death penalty. But the country's going to have to tell us that they're ready for it because it's a pretty big step.
You mentioned the Abraham Accords and Israel. This community is one of the largest Arab communities in the United States here, Dearborn, Michigan, and we have a thriving and very, very large Jewish community. Upon your inauguration, what will you do to accelerate the Abraham Accords and peace in the Middle East? What can we possibly do at this point in time to change the direction right now and move forward?
It's got to change. It's got to change fast. Also, the Abraham Accords, well, we did that. Nobody believed it. We had 4 very important countries early on, and we would have had all of them in. I even make the statement, I said it the other day, I even think we would have had Iran in, if you can believe it. I really believe that because they were ready to make a deal. Biden lost an unbelievable opportunity. And now they're very rich, and I don't know, they view it perhaps differently, but, I wouldn't necessarily say they're doing so good either. But I will tell you this, we have to have peace throughout the world, and if we don't have peace throughout the world, we're not smart people because it doesn't make sense. I've stopped a lot of wars from starting. I was very proud of that. People don't know, but there are countries that were going to war, and I stopped them using trade to stop them. I used trade. I threatened trade. I'd say you're not going to do business with the United States if you do. There's countries that have been fighting for centuries, essentially, and stop, and then they go, kill a lot of people. Crazy, but I've stopped a lot of people. And but the Abraham Accords were very important, and you had really peace. You had the Arabs and the Jews getting along, and those are for the 4 countries. Now, it should have been many countries right now. It's still the same 4. Think of it. When I left, we were going to sign people as fast as you can think, and they could have done the same thing. But they didn't have the talent. They didn't have the administration to do it. And they even agreed it was a good thing. It was a good thing. It was actually a great thing. If I were named Obama, I would have had the Nobel Prize given in 10 seconds. He got the Nobel Prize. He didn't even know what the hell he got it for. Remember, he got elected. Well, so did I. He got elected, and they announced he was getting the Nobel Prize. Remember, he said, "Oh, what did I do?" He didn't know what the hell he did. He got the Nobel Prize for doing nothing. For getting elected, but I got elected too. And, if I think of that, we did something, the Abraham Accords, unprecedented. Nobody thought it was possible. And I'm not saying want or not. I'm just saying if it was anybody else, liberal, Democrat, they would have had it before the damn thing was even signed, So there has to be fairness, and I don't care, but I'm not looking for it. I'm not politicking for it. I'm just saying that there's a lot of unfairness in this world, and I think when you do things, you should really be. You can have peace in the Middle East. You can get along. This was a start. This would have been so important if you could have had almost all of the countries, and maybe even Iran. I mean, Iran would be the outlier, but maybe even Iran at a certain point. I really believe I could have gotten them all, including Iran. And Iran, everybody would have been happy. You would have had peace in the Middle East. And you would have had the Arabs getting along with the Jews and the Jews getting along with everyone else. It would have been so beautiful. And they wasted this great opportunity. It's so sad.
So we have time for one final question, and it's a DEC tradition. We have many young adults and students in the audience today, and so I want to end with this final question. What advice to your 25-year-old self would you give to the young people today, and especially the ones in this audience?
Okay, so I met some people backstage who were young and some really beautiful people, great people, smart as can be from colleges and schools. And I think what I'd do is I'd listen to the speech I made and I'd say maybe, because they really would like to stay here. They grew up here. And I'd follow. And I will say this, if I implement, and I will be able to do it, I will. If we win the election, I would stay right here and I would follow the gravy train, because you're going to have such a great opportunity right in the area that you want to be. You want to be here because your grandparents are here and your parents are here and people are there. They don't want to leave. They've been forced to leave this area because of politicians that didn't know what they were doing. I would say stay tuned for a little while. Let's see what happens in the election. This area will be thriving like probably almost no area in the country. I think this area will be one of the hottest areas in the country. And I think you can stay here. You'll get a great job because we're going to have a lot of opportunities right here in Michigan. And you want to stay here because of your parents. A lot of them really, they told me backstage, I'd love to stay here, but there's no real jobs here. And when you look at those horrible statistics with the auto workers and with the, what's happening to the industry, you understand it. But if we win, I would stay here and you watch what's going to happen. You'll be happy. You'll be happier here than, and I think more successful here than any other place in the country. You will have the American dream. We have to bring back the American dream. You don't even hear that statement anymore. And we have to have the American dream for our young people, and you'll have it right here in Michigan.
Mr. President, thank you. I'm looking forward to all those auto plants that I'm going to be building back here in Michigan in the Midwest. It's okay. They all know anyways. Every time you're on TV or on the radio, somebody calls me up and said, the president was talking about you again. Thank you so much. And that's the end of our program today. Thank you all for coming. Let's give the president a standing ovation.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
I don't want to get him involved. But
No. They all know.
You should be proud of it. You know the reason? Cheating. They want to cheat. It's only one reason. It's crazy. No country in the world has a policy like that. Mail-in voting is all gone all over the world. All these things that we still fight over, they're all gone. So we have to win a big election, and we're going to straighten it out. But we got to straighten it because you have two things. You have borders and you have good elections. You got to have them. And it would be nice to have a free press, which we don't have at all. We have a terrible press. But those three things we have, and we have to straighten it out. So here is the deal that I will be offering to the world, to companies outside of our world, big companies, powerful companies that have become powerful because we were stupid. We were stupid. We allowed them to come in and raid and rape our country. That's what they did. Oh, he used the word rape. That's right. I used the word rape. They raped our country. The United States will give you the lowest taxes, the lowest energy costs. We have more liquid gold under our feet than any other country in the world, and it's the best. It's the best. We have the most, and we have the highest quality. We have the lowest regulatory burdens, and they were going to be made low. I cut regulations more than any president in history. In a 4-year term, I cut more than any president by 4 times, they say. 4 times. I let the country do what they have to do. A lot of those regulations have been put back on by Crooked Joe and by Kamala. and it angers me so much because it's so bad. People shaking my hand backstage, sir, we had the best 4 years we've ever had, and now they're dying. They think they're going, so many people are telling me they're going out of business now. And free access to the best and biggest market on the planet. We're going to give anybody that comes in free access to the best and biggest market anywhere on the planet that's here. But we got to keep it that way, because if we keep going like this, we're not going to have the best or biggest market for long. But only if you make your products here in America. In other words, you get all of these assets, but you have to make your product here in America, and you have to hire American workers. And if these companies don't take the deal, you know, we're lowering the taxes way down, then they'll have to pay a tax or tariff when they send their car or product into the United States. And we will use the hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff dollars to benefit the American citizens and pay down our debt. In short, a period of time, it's going to be very quick. Think of it. In a short period of time, our deficit of about $1.8 trillion, I've heard it was $2 trillion. It's never been anywhere close to this, by the way. $2 trillion a year will be reduced to practically nothing. And eventually our country will be making substantially more money over and above cost. And we will start a massive debt reduction and also further tax cuts. In other words, what I'm doing is I took it from almost 40%, your taxes. I reduced them to 21% so that small corporations, everybody, even inheritance tax or a death tax, if you have a small business and you want to pass it on to your son and daughter, if you love them. If you don't love them, I would say just don't even bother listening to this part. Is there anybody in the group that does not love their children? Where you want to raise your hand and say, sir, it's a great honor to be here, and thank you, John. It's really wonderful to be back in Detroit, and it's a true honor to be back at the Detroit Economic Club. It's really terrific people. I was here at 2016, so maybe it brought a little luck. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. Before we begin, I want to send our love to everyone affected by the hurricane. As you know, it was a rough night, and who would have thought a lot of things happening at one time? But that's just ripped through Florida and also the people of North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, Florida again, and Tennessee for what they went through with Hurricane Helene. We had quite a combination. I'd like to congratulate governors of Florida, Ron DeSantis, Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia, and South Carolina, Henry McMaster. They were really hit hard, and they've done really a fantastic job. The federal government, on the other hand, has not done what you're supposed to be doing. In particular, with respect to North Carolina, they've let those people suffer unjustly. And we're praying for all of those who lost a house or, much more importantly, a precious loved one. And there were many, actually many in Georgia and North Carolina. Florida will rebuild and come back strong. It always does. I look forward to returning very soon. We'll be there very soon. And okay, now let's get to the reason that I'm here today. I think you're going to find some interesting things, both good and bad, but we make the bad into good. That's what we like to do. It was just announced that inflation came in substantially hotter than expected last month, double what was predicted, with much of the gain coming from food prices going up, rent and housing costs going up, and car prices going up. Interest rates, as you know, are also a big factor. They're very high. They've gone from 2% when I was in office to 10% now, and you can't get the money. That means it's much higher than 10%, which really kills the American dream for young people. We have a lot of young people here, a lot of college people here. The fact is that the Federal Reserve brought the interest rates down a little too quickly. It was too big a cut, and everyone knows that was a political maneuver that they tried to do before the election, but they did the wrong thing. It was totally a political decision, and Inflation has started to rise. 4 years ago, when I left office, we had no inflation. We had virtually, just think of it, we had virtually no inflation for the entire 4 years. So when people made money, that was really their money. It wasn't money that they have to give back to a source that they know nothing about, including government. Under Biden and Harris, because of inflation, the economy has been a total disaster. But Kamala says that she can't think of one thing that she would do differently. She said that 2 days ago in a very unfortunate interview for her. And there are many people saying, in particular, highly respected analysts like Scott Bessent, one of the top analysts on Wall Street, that the only reason that the stock market has gone up is because Donald Trump is doing very well in the polls, and it looks like he's going to win. A lot of people are saying that. Who knows? But a lot of people are saying that the only way to end this suffering is to vote for change this November, because what we're doing is our country is very bad. We're being scoffed at and laughed at all over the world. The other big news is the fraud committed by 60 Minutes and CBS, together with the Democrat Party, working together with them, which will go down as the single biggest scandal in broadcast history, I predict. It's a big story. I don't know if you've seen it yet. Happened. They learned about it yesterday evening. The real answer of Kamala was very crazy or dumb. Nobody knows what, but it was bad. So they actually replaced it. Think of this. They'd never done that for me. They actually replaced it with another answer, having nothing to do with what she said before. They took another thing that she said and they just lopped it in there. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. 60 Minutes, nobody's ever seen. And they wanted to make her look as good as possible, make her look better. A big problem in our country is the fake news. We have such fake news. I mean, I've had a recent thing where, as an example, an Obama disciple named Peter Baker, he writes for the failing New York Times. He wrote a piece about me. And just one of the many things he said that was wrong, but he said that I would go around saying that I was honored here years ago as the Man of the Year or whatever. And I talked about how your car industry, this was long before, many years before I ran for president, maybe 18, 20 years ago. And he made the statement that that never took place, that honor never took place. I was never honored here, which was quite insulting, actually. I didn't remember the specifics of it. It was 18 or 20 years ago. But he said it never took place. Very much like Kamala, she said she worked at McDonald's, and she didn't. And I didn't want to get into that, so what I did is I asked my people, you got to find it. When? It was like 19 years, 17, it was a long time. But I was honored. And guess what? They found it. I was. Right here. Nice looking young guy. No, it was a long time ago. So this was in, let's see, this was an update of the article that they originally printed. It says, Oakland County GOP to honor Donald Trump, former president, to speak at upcoming Lincoln Day fundraising dinner. And it says down here, the county party gave Trump the Man of the Year award at the dinner, too. And he was honored as Man of the Year. So here's your article right here. Oakland Press, Oakland County GOP to honor Trump. And I have a man in the failing, fake New York Times, disgraceful paper. They ought to be ashamed. They make, whatever they say, believe the opposite. Who knows how long they're going to be around? It's killing our country, this kind of stuff. It's killing our country. It's really terrible. I want to thank the president of the Detroit Economic Club, Steve Gregorian, who's a very wonderful guy, as well as Congressman John James, Ambassador David Fisher, Michigan Senate Republican leader Eric Nesbitt. Thank you, Eric. It's great. Where's that? Thank you very much. How are we doing? I hear we're 4 points up. Well, how are we doing? Huh? Yeah, she says at least. Thank you. Michigan House Republican leader Matt Hall, a very good guy. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Is John there? John James? Where's John? He's doing well. We have some good people here. Chairman of Michigan Republican Party, Pete Hoekstra. Pete, thank you very much, Pete. And a very special man, a great guy, Dr. Masad Boulos. Many of you know him. He's a very successful man. He happens to be the father of Tiffany's husband, Michael, who's a very exceptional young guy, and she's an exceptional young woman, and she's going to have a baby, so that's nice. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great honor. And many other distinguished guests. And we have some very distinguished Democrats in the room, too, and I really do appreciate you being here. That's very nice. Thank you. There'll be a day when we're going to work together. I hope we're going to be able to work together. That would be great. Good for everybody. But I'm here today to talk about a subject that has always been very dear to my heart, saving the U.S. auto industry. That's what I spoke about in Oakland many years ago. I said, they're stealing your auto industry years ago. They're stealing your auto industry. You got to stop it. Well, they didn't exactly listen. But we have to make that industry bigger, better, stronger, and more dynamic than ever before. And I've been reading about Detroit for so many years that it's coming around, and never really got there. Everybody tries so hard. But if you make the auto industry bigger, better, stronger, you don't have to worry about Detroit. It'll be very good. It'll come by its own. That would be non-artificial. That would be the way to do it, right? You make the auto industry thrive, bring it back to where it was 50, 60 years ago. You can do that, too. And that's my goal, and I'm laying out a policy that will absolutely do it. In my opinion, absolutely do it. And I've been very good at this over my life. So my goal is to see U.S. auto manufacturing even greater than it was in its prime, and for Detroit and Michigan to be at the center of the action. For generations, this city and state were the world capital of automotive production. And American automakers rolled one iconic model off the line after the next, the Mustang, the Corvette, the Pontiac GTO. I had two of them, actually. I had that GTO. Oh, I thought I was the hottest guy around. It was crazy. We didn't have all of the foreign competition then. He was so proud to have the Corvette. Oh, if you had a Corvette. I never got a Corvette, I tell you. I was left behind. But I had my GTO. I was something, man. I'd put that top down. See, in those days, I didn't mind when the hair waved. I'd go fast, and that hair would be waving, that blonde hair, and I'd say, who the hell can take me? Nobody. Today, I'm a little more careful. I want to cover up that little area up there. It's a little bit soft up there. Cover it up. No, it was great. But you did. You had the greatest product. It was just fantastic. And right here in Detroit, Americans invented the muscle car and the minivan and the family SUV, so much. And along the road, you made the American automobile an inseparable part of the, and it was inseparable, of the American dream. It was part of the American dream. But after decades and decades of Michigan auto workers giving our nation their very best, our leaders in Washington did their very worst for them. They were terrible. You lost nearly 4 million manufacturing jobs after globalist politicians gave us the twin disasters of NAFTA, which I terminated, and China's entry into the World Trade Organization. That was a very expensive two things. Nearly 250,000 jobs were destroyed here. Right here in Michigan alone, think of it. 250,000, 250,000 jobs, including 40% of all of the auto jobs. And then it got to be much higher than that. Detroit was decimated as if by a foreign army. This was a foreign army invading us, but it was an army of business people, very brilliant business people, that took the candy out of our pockets just like you take it from a baby. That's how easy it was for them. Factories were left in ruins. Beautiful hotels and theaters crumbled. More than 80,000 homes were abandoned. You see it outside. By the time I came into office after our victory in 2016, the Michigan auto industry was on its knees begging for help, gasping. And really, it was at the last breaths of life. And I had to move quickly. You're going to not have any auto industry here. It was all gone. It was just about over. They were going to move so fast, and I let countries that were stealing our businesses know, you do that, I'm going to do things to you you're not going to believe. I'm going to put tariffs. They laid off a lot. They could have taken it. We were at a very vulnerable point. I let certain countries know that if you do that, I'm going to put tariffs on you, and you're going to get your asses kicked, I'm telling you. And they laid off. They really laid off. But they laid off what? We had not very much left. So just as I promised, I withdrew from the job-killing Trans-Pacific Partnership in my very first week. And the reason I did is that would have absolutely destroyed your auto industry. You would have had none left. It was a disaster. And if you remember, Hillary Clinton wanted it, and Obama wanted it. And then after she read the facts that when I did it, she came out against it because she said, he's right. She was totally in favor of it. But when she said, she came out actually and agreed with me. And she said, I'm also against it. But I was there. It's sort of like no tax on tips. And then 2 months later, Kamala came out, no tax on tips. And it didn't play well for her. Didn't play well for Hillary either, obviously. I ended the disaster known as NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made by our country, and replaced it with the brand new USMCA. Bob Lighthizer and his team did a great job. The best trade deal they say ever made. I actually think maybe our deal with China, but I don't talk about that deal very much because of COVID. But we have a deal with China where they buy $50 billion worth of our product. That was a great deal. We have made a lot of good ones. But with the USMCA, that's Mexico and Canada, we have massive incentives to make cars in the United States of America. I renegotiated Obama's Korea trade deal, which was a disaster, to fully restore the protective tariff on foreign pickup trucks. The auto industry in this country makes most of its money from the pickup truck. Who would think, right? But we do great. If we didn't have that, you'd have no auto industry. You would, because that subsidizes other things. And the only reason it does is that the tariff on every single one of the big, if you didn't have the tariffs, if I didn't put those tariffs, you would be inundated from all over the world, and you wouldn't have it. Every single one of the Detroit Big Three could right now, and would right now, guaranteed be out of business. 50% of their U.S. sales are pickup trucks. Think of that, 50%. They make all their money with almost all their money. I want to be very accurate because you got a lot of fake news back there. I want to be extremely accurate. They came to see you in Detroit. I'll tell you, that's a good thing because they're going to hear some things today I think that are going to be very interesting. Perhaps most importantly, I imposed a 27.5% tariff on all Chinese automobiles, which largely kept them out of the market, meaning kept them out of the market and kept Detroit in business. In other words, I kept Chinese cars out of America, and we had to do it because when they come in, they take over everything, and you would have had no car manufacturing at all. And it was only me that did it. I met with a lot of resistance. And remember this, between the lobbyists and everything else, it's brutal. It's brutal. Getting people to go along with you is brutal. Even if it's the wrong thing. They know it's the wrong thing, but they get paid a lot of money. So I just want to say, Michigan, you're welcome, because we have a little base to start off with. And if you look at Europe, Chinese cars have been absolutely drowning Europe, drowning it. It's killing it. But because of me, they are not drowning America. You see very few of them because of the tariffs. And when they do come in, they pay a lot of money. The Biden administration is thinking of taking that tax off, and if they take that tax off, you can wave goodbye to your auto industry, and you have the worst union leader probably in the history of, maybe in the history of our country for any business. I don't know him. Sean Fain is a disaster. But your industry would be gone very quickly. Under my leadership, we created nearly 500,000 brand new manufacturing jobs, including 30,000 auto manufacturing jobs right away. We saved it and we got it going. And that was nothing compared to what I'm talking about now. Nothing. Because we had COVID come in that final period, and we had to focus on that. The share of cars sold that were domestically produced increased for the first time in many years. It actually, because it was going down, down, down. And since I left, wait till you hear those numbers. The U.S. trade deficit in automobiles dropped by $6.8 billion. Think of that. And I had to do it on the fly. We had to do it fast because you're going to have no industry whatsoever. Whatever you have now, and it's a fraction of what you used to have in the glory days. I call them the glory days. That was when we were the greatest in so many ways. U.S. Steel, look at it. They want to sell U.S. Steel to a foreign country. I'm going to not let that happen. I hope the deal doesn't close before then. I will not let that happen. We need our steel. You know, I imposed a tremendous tariff on China and the steel. They were dumping steel all over the country, and our steel mills were going out of business, and I put a 50% tariff on, and that largely stopped it. And I think the people that like me the best are the steel people, because I saved their industry. We wouldn't have one steel plant in this country if I didn't do that. There wouldn't be one. And I had no wars, but other than I finished off ISIS very quickly. But I had no wars. But whether you have wars or don't have wars, when you have to make army tanks and when you have to make planes and everything else that you have to do is mostly steel. And we don't want to be in a position where we have a problem and we need China to help us out with steel. That could be a serious problem. Do you think they'd mind selling us some steel in the middle of a conflict? But I don't think we'll have a conflict with China. I think we'll get along with China, and I think we'll get along with Russia, and I think we'll get along with Ukraine, and I think we're going to get that one settled. And I think we're not going to have a problem with Israel, like October 7th would never have happened. Russia would have never happened. They would have never gone into Ukraine had I been president. But under Kamala, we are now in a manufacturing recession with manufacturing contracting in 22. Think of this. It got smaller. In 22 out of the last 23 months, it got smaller. We're losing jobs every single month. We've lost nearly 50,000 manufacturing jobs this year alone. Car sales are down by 38% since I left. The share of domestically produced cars sold has dropped significantly, and the U.S. trade deficit in automobiles has exploded by nearly $50 billion to an all-time high, the worst they've ever had it. Right now, your car industry is going out of business. It's going out of business. Nothing to do with me. I stopped that. I stopped Mexico, which is becoming the second China. I stopped Mexico from taking your car plants and moving them into Mexico and taking all of that business, making it in Mexico. So we lose all those jobs in Michigan and South Carolina and other places. We have many, Tennessee, we have many places. But I think in terms of this, because it's been so badly treated, this area, this state has been so badly treated by your politicians, your stupid politicians, what they've done to this state is incredible. And it would have been easy to stop, but half of them are paid a lot of money by a lot of a lot of people that don't care about the country. They care about how much money they're going to make, including lobbyists and others. Make a lot of money. You ever see the money the lobbyists make? They make a lot. But they give a lot of it away. I wonder who they give it to. But we're not going to allow this horror to continue. The 4-year-long nightmare for the American auto worker ends the day I take the oath of office, January 20th, it ends. Yeah, a poll just came out today. As I was walking on, they said, "Sir, you're 4 points up in Michigan." I said, "That's all," but they said by a poll that they called it a Democrat poll. It's a poll that would normally be very negative. So if they say 4 points, that means more. But I think we're doing well here, and I think we're doing well all over. We're leading in every single state, every swing state, by actually, in some cases, a lot. Today, I am announcing a detailed plan to save the American auto industry and bring millions and millions of jobs back to our shores, and very quickly. If you vote for Trump, and you will see a mass exodus of manufacturing jobs, but from Mexico to Michigan, from Shanghai to Sterling Heights, and from Beijing to right here in beautiful Detroit. Wait till you see Detroit. And they'll also be going to places like South Carolina, Tennessee, and others. We have a lot of car-making states, a lot of parts-making states, too. And our car industry will have a renaissance, the likes of which we have never seen before in this country. We have never seen since the golden years. It's my goal to get our country on an automaking path where at some point in the near future it will be bigger and more important than it ever was. And even in its heyday, many years ago, it was unbelievable. I think we can be bigger and more important because we have some very, very great assets. And this is very personal for me. Personal. One of the reasons is because I've been talking about it for 20 years. I can't believe it happened. That was when I was honored, that's all I talked about. I was watching this happen. It was, at that time, Japan. Japan was just taking our cars like we were a bunch of babies. I always say candy from a baby. That's how easy it was. Now it's Japan, but it's China, and it's a lot of countries. This was one of the biggest reasons I ran for president in the first place. You know, it was probably the auto industry that was most abused. You were the most abused. There are a lot of industries that are abused. We stopped it, but now I could put the brakes on. Not only stop, I now know the game a little better. You know, I had never been a politician before. I got to the White House. I said, yeah, I've never done this before, but I had to learn, and I had some great people. Bob Lighthizer was great, our trade representative, but we had some people that I didn't like, I wouldn't have picked in retrospect. We had some clinkers, but you have to understand, I just got there. I was only in Washington 17 times, and I never stayed over. So I wasn't a part of Washington society. It wasn't my thing. I was a New York person, developer, did great. And I knew New York, but I didn't know Washington. So I came, I had to rely on people. Sometimes I'd rely on rhinos, and that's what I'd get. I'd get a rhino. And that wasn't so good. But we had mostly great people, but we had some ones that I would not have again. And we're going to finish the job that we really brilliantly started, because we had numbers that the ambassador gave you some of them. I don't want to bore you by going through it, but he gave you some numbers that were unprecedented. I intend for the triumph of the American auto industry to be among my greatest legacies. I want it to be a legacy. I want American companies to not only dominate the American market, but also the foreign markets as well. They buy so many of our cars. It's so horrible. But you know, they only buy them if they're made in their countries. China, I don't object. Look, President Xi was, and I would say is, a very good friend. We broke up a little bit. You know the way friendships break up? A thing called the China virus broke us up. I think that's understandable, right? Cost the world about $50 trillion and tens of millions of lives all over the world. I think that's a reason. But no, I've always had a very good relationship with him. Very, very strong, smart man. He's strong and smart, meaning he wants to take your auto industry, and so does every other leader of a country. They want to take your industry, all of our industry, and we're not going to do that. We won't let them play that game, and it's not even hard, and you'll understand that in a moment. I want German car companies to become American car companies. I want them to build plants in America. Otherwise, I'd rather not have their cars here. Instead of American workers worrying about losing their jobs to foreign nations, I want foreign nations to be worried about losing their jobs to America. That's going to happen. Going to happen. Going to happen. And I hope the Democrats will go along with us, but we'll get it done one way or the other. I hope they're going to go along with us. It's so good. It's like so many things they don't, like voter ID. Why aren't they approving voter ID? Democrats don't want voter ID. You know why? Because they want to cheat. But they don't want to. I say, oh, they don't. When I first thought, I thought I was seeing things. I thought I was like, I didn't hear that when I first started this whole, that say, the Democrats will not approve voter ID. And it's only gotten worse. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, just passed a bill. He signed a bill that you're not even allowed to ask anybody whether or not they have voter ID. Not only can't you use it, you can't even ask. I think it's a crime or something. I could ask the Secretary of State. No, I think it's a crime. I think it's a crime if you ask somebody, do you have ID, voter ID? Let's lock that guy up. In other words, it's not a crime to vote illegally, but it's a crime to ask whether or not. There's only one reason for that. You know the reason? Cheating. They want to cheat. It's only one reason. It's crazy. No country in the world has a policy like that. Mail-in voting is all gone all over the world. All these things that we still fight over, they're all gone. So we have to win a big election, and we're going to straighten it out. But we got to straighten it out because you have two things: you have borders and you have good elections. You got to have them, and it would be nice to have a free press, which we don't have at all. We have a terrible press. But those three things we have, and we have to straighten it out. So here is the deal that I will be offering to the world, to companies outside of our world, big companies, powerful companies that have become powerful because we were stupid. We were stupid. We allowed them to come in and raid and rape our country. That's what they did. Oh, he used the word rape. That's right. I used the word rape. They raped our country. The United States will give you the lowest taxes, the lowest energy costs. We have more liquid gold under our feet than any other country in the world, and it's the best. It's the best. We have the most, and we have the highest quality. We have the lowest regulatory burdens, and they were going to be made low. You know, I cut regulations more than any president in history. In a 4-year term, I cut more than any president by 4 times, they say. 4 times. I let the country do what they have to do. A lot of those regulations have been put back on by Crooked Joe and by Kamala. And it angers me so much because it's so bad. People shaking my hand backstage, sir, we had the best 4 years we've ever had, and now they're dying. They think they're going. So many people are telling me they're going out of business now. And free access to the best and biggest market on the planet. We're going to give anybody that comes in free access to the best and biggest market anywhere on the planet that's here. But we got to keep it that way, because if we keep going like this, we're not going to have the best or biggest market for long. But only if you make your products here in America. In other words, you get all of these assets, but you have to make your product here in America, and you have to hire American workers. And if these companies don't take the deal, you know, we're lowering the taxes way down, then they'll have to pay a tax or tariff when they send their car or product into the United States. And we will use the hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff dollars to benefit the American citizens and pay down our debt. In short, a period of time, it's going to be very quick. Think of it. In a short period of time, our deficit of